Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. Just a quick announcement, if you haven't checked out my last video, go check that out. I made a video detailing like the current status of the channel, what will be happening with this channel in the future, as well as the announcement of my second channel. So go check that out. I know a lot of you have already. For those of you who have already, thank you so much. And then today we're going to be talking about our for once we're doing an actual future fight. We're going to be talking about the V-EB01? Yeah, V-EB01 decks. So these are our new extra booster decks, which contain Spike Brothers, Mega Colony, and Tachikaze. So today we're going to be talking about the Tachikaze deck because it is first on the list. So yeah, let's get right into it. I don't think I have any other announcements to give besides that. So this is a standard deck, so there is no extra deck, as you guys can see. But yeah, let's talk about the main deck, get right into it. This is actually like a really fun deck. It introduces a new mechanic as well, which for those of you who play area, this is what this little like bullet pellet is for. It's a equip gauge. So that's a kind of a new mechanic that Bushiroad has added. And it has a lot of good interactions and some bad interactions too. But it's really just learning to play your way around it. And with Tachikaze being an Accel fan as well, you really have to know what you're doing to not mess yourself up and lose the game to your opponent. So let's start out with our grade 3. So we have 4 Ravenous Dragon Gigarex. Gigarex has 2 Vanguard abilities, so it's only good on the Vanguard circle basically. I will play it on the Rearguard circle sometimes, but if there's any grade 3 that I'm going to play on the Rearguard circle, it has to be Tyrant Deathrex usually, because this card is baller on the Rearguard circle more so than Vanguard, because its skill is the exact same whether it's on Vanguard or Rearguard circle, so you might as well put it on Rearguard circle and put Gigarex on Vanguard circle, seeing as though its skills are Vanguard only. So its 2 Vanguard skills is the first one is when it attacks, you can put up to 1 card from the top of your deck as an equip gauge to each of your rear guards face down, and then this unit gets plus 5,000 power until the end of the battle for each of your rear guards. So basically, let me explain this. So something that I was doing when I first started playing this deck, and you guys will see that because the first game in the test games are usually like the first game that I've ever played with the deck, so you guys can see how I interact with the deck just like putting my hands on it for the first time. But I was like, I thought that it puts, every time it attacks, that you forcefully have to put an equip gauge on every single rear guard that you have. That is incorrect. You can put, since it says up to 1, and I read that later, you can actually like just choose which ones you want to gain an equip gauge, and then only those ones will get an equip gauge. That way you're not digging through your deck so hard, and then you can give equip gauges to only the things that need it. Then it's activation skill on the Vanguard circle. During the main phase, you can discard 5 equip gauges from anywhere. So from your rear guards, Vanguard, wherever you have an equip gauge, you can just like discard them, discard 5, and then you choose 3 of your rear guards in the front row. They get plus 5,000 power, and then if your opponent has 4 or less damage, you deal 1 damage to your opponent. So that can be pretty good. I've actually never used the second ability because by the time I would deal them a damage, so the only reason that you get to Gigarex is like if you play a bunch of rear guards and you equip gauges to all of them when you attack. But then if you make a full board, in my opinion, you're losing because your opponent will take advantage of you, either attack your rear guards or attack your Vanguard when you don't have anything in the hand. Second reason why you're losing if you do that is because if you're digging through your deck so hard, like sure you'll deal your opponent a damage, but it's like at what expense? You know what I mean? Like you just went through like 10 cards in your deck if you put 5 and 5. Also, when your opponent attacks your rear guards and it retires, unless it has some type of ability like Blight Tops, you won't be able to get those equip gauges back, so the equip gauges will just die with the rear guards. So yeah, that's very important to keep in mind. Also, a couple things I should go over with the equip gauges, just in case you guys don't know. A couple of the rulings. I know they have like a whole Japanese stream about it, but for those of you who only speak English, let me break it down for you. So basically, the equip gauge is the new mechanic for Tachikaze. If it says that you can equip a equip gauge somewhere, you basically put the top card of your deck underneath one of your rear guards or Vanguard in certain scenarios. You can put them under anything, but as you're putting them under something, you are not allowed to look at what it is. Like you cannot look at the top card of your deck and say, I want this here. So the reason why they do that is so that you can't like look at it and choose where you want things to go, because that would be too good, too unfair. So it's like a random equip gauge goes to like everything when you choose it. You do get to choose the order. So if for some reason you know that there can only be certain types of cards on the top of your deck, you can put them under certain rear guards like accordingly. But after they are placed under your rear guard, then you are allowed to look at them, but your opponent is not allowed to look at them. It is still not open information for your opponent, but it is open information for you. That way your opponent can't hunt down your rear guards, like if it has something important behind it as an equip gauge that you can get to your hand. But yeah, that would be unfair. So also, if your rear guards get locked, or they get bounced to hand, or they leave the field in any way, or they die just from being retired, then the equip gauges, unless you have some special skill that can be activated right at that moment, like for example, when Kagero kills Blytops, it counts as being retired from rear guard circle. So you can counterboss one and return up to 2 cards from the equip gauge. So you won't lose the cards with equip gauge with Blytops, but you will lose it on like pretty much everything else, unless it's unless it is Lacerex, you will get 1 equip gauge back, and Skyptero, you will get you actually can't get anything with Skyptero, because Skyptero is during your turn when it's retired. So if anything else happens to them, all your equip gauges go to the drop zone. And yeah, also if you're moving your rear guards up and down in the same column, like if you're moving something in the front row and back row, the equip gauges follow the unit, so they're attached to the unit. So if you move something from the back row to the front row and there's an equip gauge back there, it also moves up to the front row with the unit as well. If you guys have any other questions about equip gauge or about, you know, the mechanic of the deck, please feel free to comment down below and I will answer any questions that I forgot to, but that's all that I can think of for right now. So yeah, I've never used the second skill of Gigarex. It's not really that important to me. Also, since we run crits instead of front triggers, you end up putting your opponent at a lot higher damage than usual. Like if we were playing like Nova Grappler or something like that, sure, sometimes your opponent's at 4 damage, you want to put them to 5 for more pressure, and that's where front triggers come in. So I feel like the second skill is more useful if you're running front triggers. If not, it doesn't really matter to us. Then our backup grade 3 is for Tyrant Deathrex. So Tyrant Deathrex, like I said, is just very, very good on the rearguard circle, but it can also use its skill in the Vanguard circle as well if you happen to have to ride it. When it attacks a Vanguard, you can Soul Blast one and choose one of your other rear guards, and then you choose one of your opponent's rear guards in the front row and you retire it. And so you retire one of your rear guards and Soul Blast one, you retire one of your opponent's rear guards, and then this unit gets plus 10,000 power until the end of the battle for each equip gauge that the rear guard that you retired had. So something that I like to do is use this in combo with Megarex, because Megarex puts an equip gauge on itself. So if we have Ravenous Dragon Gigarex on our Vanguard, we can attack a Vanguard, place an equip gauge to Megarex, and then Megarex will attack, putting an equip gauge to itself, and then Deathrex will attack, destroying Megarex, but also gaining 20,000 because there's 2 equip gauges on Megarex. So really, really good combo. If your opponent's at 5 damage, it can really force a lot out of their hand because it attacks for really big columns, especially against other Protect and Accel clans that don't have that 13k base. Then we have 4 Ravenous Dragon Megarex, the card that I was just talking about. It is our grade 2 preferred ride as well because it has a Vanguard rearguard skill. So the Vanguard rearguard skill is when it attacks a Vanguard, retire one of your rearguards and draw a card, and then it gets the second half of it is only if it's placed on the rearguard circle or if it's sitting on the rearguard circle at the time. So when it's on Vanguard, you only can attack a Vanguard, retire another rearguard, and draw a card. But if it's on rearguard, you attack a Vanguard, retire a card, draw a card, and then you can counterboss one, put the top card of the deck under this card as an equip gauge, and then it gets plus 5,000 power for each equip gauge card. So like I said, with the combo with Deathrex, it's really prominent and really good just because the more equip gauges Megarex has on it, the bigger it'll be, and then the bigger Deathrex will be when you retire it to attack. So very, very good combo. Then we have 4 Assault Dragon Blytops. So Blytop's skill is when it is retired from the rearguard circle, counterboss 1, and return up to 2 cards from this unit's equip gauge to your hand. So you can stack equip gauges under Blytops and then retire it with any of the mini skills that we have that retire rearguards. And usually you draw a card for it or something. So if you're retiring for Megarex or Sonic Noah, you will draw a card, and then on top of that, you can counter boss one and get both of the equip gauges that were under it back. So that's like a free +3 almost. So it's very, very good. Then we have 3 Attempt Mammoth. This card's really, really good in the early game and also kind of good in the late game if you place it on an Accel circle. But its rearguard skill is during the battle that it attacked, your opponent must call 2 or more guardians from their hand, or they cannot guard at all. So basically, it's just like if you guys have already been playing standard and you're used to like all the matchups and all the decks. Nova Grappler, their Battledore fighter, gives the same skill to a rearguard. So instead of giving this skill to a rearguard, Attempt Mammoth just already has it, which is really, really good. But its other rearguard skill kind of like keeps it in check or keeps it in line. At the end of the battle that it attacked, you can discard a card from this card's equip gauge. And if you do not discard a card from the equip gauge, then you have to retire this unit. So you either play it and you can attack and retire it, or you can play it, attack with Ravenous Dragon Gigarex, and then put a equip gauge on it, and then you can swing with Attempt Mammoth and then get rid of that equip gauge after the swing so that you don't have to retire Attempt Mammoth. A lot of times I do end up retiring it anyways for other skills, just like, you know, Death Rex or Sonic Noah, whatever, but it is a really, really good card. But that's why we only run 3, because of that drawback that it has. Blytops and Megarex, in my opinion, have less drawback, so we run more of them. Moving on to our grade 1 lineup, we have 4 Fierce Claw Dragon Lacertex. Yeah, Lacertex. So what Lacertex does is it has 2 abilities. They're both on the rearguard circle. So the first one is when it's placed from hand, put the top card of your deck as an equip gauge onto this unit face down. So this card can easily fulfill its second requirement just by playing it on the field. So a lot of times you don't even have to stack additional equip gauges onto Lacertex just from Ravenous, just because it already places an equip gauge on itself when it gets played from the hand. And then the second ability is when it is retired from rearguard circle, Soul Blast 1. So that's very important to keep in mind, because you do have to Soul Blast a lot of times to retire at Death Threat. So be aware of your Soul Blast and how you're using them, because if you Soul Blast too much, you're not going to be able to do your really, really good combos. But you do Soul Blast 1, and you can return up to 1 card from this unit's equip gauge to your hand. So really, you guys can see kind of the difference in cards that you want to have equip gauges on and some that you don't. So Tyrant Deathrex, when it's on the field so far, you never really want to have an equip gauge on it, because it doesn't really matter. Unless you have 2 Tyrant Deathrex on the field, you can put an equip gauge on 1 if you plan on retiring it with the other Deathrex. Megarex, the more equip gauges it has, the more power it gains. Blytops, you want to put up to 2 equip gauges, but no more than that, because when it dies, you can only get 2 back. Mammoth, you can put as many as you want, like every turn, because it's just going to end up using itself when it attacks. So that's fine. And then Lacertex, you only want to put 1 equip gauge on, because when it dies, you can only get 1 back. So otherwise, you're just going to be losing cards for free. You don't want to do that. That sounds bad. Then moving on, we have 4 Sonic Noah. This is honestly one of the best cards in the deck. I love starting in the early game with a grade 1 that's not Sonic Noah and a Sonic Noah and some kind of grade 2 in my hand, just because it makes for a really broken early game combo where you can ride to grade 2, call another grade 2, call a Sonic Noah behind it, and then you can just go ham and get a lot of advantage, especially if the card that you're riding as your grade 2 is Ravenous Dragon Megarex. You can literally play a ride Megarex, then call Attempt Mammoth, and then call Sonic Noah behind Attempt Mammoth, attack your opponent's Vanguard. They have to guard with 2 cards or none at all. And then Sonic Noah will put an equip gauge on Attempt Mammoth, so that takes care of it, like not retiring itself. At the end of the battle, you will get rid of Attempt Mammoth's equip gauge, and then if the attack hit with Sonic Noah, you can actually retire Attempt Mammoth and draw a card. And then when you attack with Megarex, you can actually retire Sonic Noah and draw a card. So not only did you get some like free advantage off your opponent, you just got all the costs back as well. So Sonic Noah's 2 abilities is one is on the rearguard circle and one is on Vanguard and rearguard circle. So the one that's rearguard circle only is when it boosts a rearguard, put the top card of your deck as an equip gauge into the unit that you're boosting. Which means that whenever it boosts, you just put an equip gauge into the unit that's in front of it. And then, so that also, you guys should be aware or be very careful about what you're placing in front of Sonic Noah. Because, for example, if you're placing a Death Rex in front of Sonic Noah, that's kind of useless because it doesn't let you equip an equip gauge anywhere. You have to equip an equip gauge to the boosted unit. So you should not put things like Death Rex or Ravenous Dragon Gigarex or stuff like that in front of Sonic Noah unless you really have to, just because you will have to put an equip gauge there, and then you're just like making your deck lower for no reason because there's nothing that you can do with that equip gauge besides retire the unit with Death Rex and get power. Then its second ability is when an attack hits a Vanguard during the battle that this unit attacked or boosted, you can retire one of your other rear guards and draw a card. So this card seems pretty simplistic, but in reality, its second skill carries you through so many things in the battle phase, it's not even funny. So this card is really, really good. Then we have 4 Winged Dragon Skyptero. For those of you who remember, this card used to be the 6k grade 1 that would bounce itself to hand every time you would retire it. Well, it is back, and it has the same exact ability. When this card is retired from rear guard during your turn, counterblast 1 and return this card to your hand. So pretty good. Then we just run 2 Assist Pirax or Assist Terex or whatever. It is our like classic Accel. It seems like this is going to be like a pattern where Accel gets like a 9k grade 1 with no shield value. Basically just to help give you another attacker, and it's really good on an Accel circle, but it's also a really good booster because some of your columns, like you can just make 13 with it easy, or like make 23 with it easy, which is like a column on 13ks. So pretty good. I didn't have as much of a problem in this deck running these as I did with running Death Army Guy and Nova Grappler, just because Nova Grappler doesn't plus a lot, but this Tachikaze deck does. So you can actually get around running these just because you're drawing so many cards and you're filtering so much, and you're, you know, attacking in a good order. So it's not really a problem to run these versus running them in Nova Grappler where you really need the shield. Then for our starter, we run 1 Dragon Egg, or should I say Baby Dragon. I mean, Red Eyes Baby Dragon. Dragon Egg. It looks like Red Eyes Baby Dragon from Yu-Gi-Oh! For those of you who play Yu-Gi-Oh! But its skill as our starter is just simplistic, like every other starter we've gotten so far. When you ride upon it, you draw a card. So I feel like they're going to keep the starters like this for a while, so nothing to say about it until we get other starters that are different. But yeah, gets you a little deeper into your deck, helps you draw some grades that you don't have in the early game sometimes, and sometimes can help you not misride. Just by riding up to grade 1 and you don't have a grade 2, you draw a grade 2, you're like, oh, nice. Like, you know, it makes the mulligan process really efficient as well, just because when you put your cards back to the bottom and you draw more and then you shuffle, most likely when you ride on top of your unit, you're going to draw a card that you need, or like if you don't have a grade already. So then for our triggers, we run 8 crit, 4 draw, and 4 heal. Pretty typical. This is an Accel deck, so maybe not so typical because they usually run front triggers. But I believe that front triggers are only good when you can like multi-attack, and this deck doesn't really multi-attack, it just attacks extra times because of the Accel circle, so I'd rather run crits. So we have 4 Savage Aggressor, 4 Black Cannon Tiger as our crits. Those are both of our standard crits. Then we have 4 Archbird. This used to be RPG in G format, but this is now our Sentinel trigger in this deck. So it is our draw trigger that is also a PG as well. Basically, it's a Sentinel, and then when you place it on the guard circle, you can discard a card from your hand and perfect guard a unit. So pretty good that they turn draws into PGs. Helps you not lose your PGs, and what I mean by that is when you damage check a PG now, you know that you're getting power for it on the defensive, and you're also drawing a card, versus just being like, oh, there goes one of my PGs out of the game, unable to help me in any way. So they made it good to check it on defensive and offensive, and actually good for it to be in your hand as well. Because with, you know, with everything being so big, like 5k draw trigger, like as shield, is not going to help you much. So this is how they got around the fact of not making draw triggers 10k shield, in my opinion. So then we have 4 Savage Shaman as our heal trigger. It is our 20k standard heal, pretty standard, if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, nothing much to say about that. I think that's the only heal that you can run in standard anyway, so if you're running any other heal, you're cheating. Yeah, so let's get right into the games. So we're gonna load up Tachikaze 1. So first we're playing in Spike Brothers, which like everyone and their moms is playing Spike Brothers because they believe that that's like the best deck to come out of the set. Well, honestly, in my opinion, like it's kind of like a tie between Spikes and Tachikaze if you're playing both right. But I do ride the 9K, and that's something I forgot to mention is it does work as a 9K defense as well. But my opponent checks a trigger. So we ride Mega Rex, we call Temp Mammoth and Sonic Noah. We attack with Sonic Noah, putting a gauge on a Temp Mammoth. Temp Mammoth skill gets rid of the gauge. Sonic Noah hit, so retire Temp Mammoth, draw. And then Mega Rex attacks, retires Sonic Noah, draw. And then we're attacking for 9. Our opponent guards for a no pass. We check a Tyrant Death Rex, makes it all okay. We have a ton of grade 3s in our hand in this game, so you guys will kind of see how I work around that. Usually on standard, when you have a lot of grade 3s in your hand, you want to keep rewriting them. So it's kind of like clunky to have a bunch of grade 3s in your hand. Like in Mega Colony, there's a game where I have a bunch of grade 3s in my hand and I just straight up die because I can't do anything with it really. But our opponent uses Spike Bouncer and attacks us, then attacks for 23. We get a draw trigger, draw a card. We ride a Ravenous Dragon Gigarex. We call a Tyrant Death Rex, call 2 for the rearguard circle, and we call in the Temp Mammoth. We attack with Ravenous first, just so that we can give, and this was what I was talking about, how game 1 I was just adding like gauges to everything. I probably should not have added gauges to one of these Death Rexes, but I did anyways. So Mammoth gets rid of its Temp Gauge, and then we attack with Tyrant Death Rex to retire his rearguard. And then we attack with Death Rex normal without using a skill because we want to retire rearguard every time that we're doing it, or it's not worth, in my opinion. Because we want to be getting more power, but we also want to be taking cards away from our opponent at the same time. So our opponent rides Juggernaut Maximum and calls a Bracky and a Treasure Black Panther. And then our opponent attacks with this skill, gets 15k, so we guard the rearguard, and then he attacks the rearguard again. So he's obviously pretty scared of our Death Rexes, so we let him have one, and then he attacks the other one as well, so we just let him have it as well. If he only knew how many grade 3s we had in our hand, like, we could have actually been in trouble had he attacked Vanguard. But we call another Death Rex and a Blytops, and then we call Skyptero as our booster. We, again, put, like, gauges on everything, even though technically I shouldn't have put a gauge on the booster just because I thought that I could get that gauge back somehow, and I can't, because Blytops only takes gauges from itself, like if it has 2 gauges. So we use Blytops skill to take the gauge back after retiring with Death Rex, and then we had passed turn. Our opponent like calls Wonder Boy. This card broke. Allows him to recycle triggers and stuff. He plays Gary and Funky Bazooka. He attacks for 13. We guard for a 2 to pass. He gets a crit trigger, adds it to one column, then gets a Wonder Boy, adds to the other. So we guard the lighter rear guard, and then we take the double rear guard. We get a draw trigger. We re-ride Ravenous for the 3rd time, so now we have 3 Accel circles, and we are able to just attack. We put a gauge on everything. And this is the point, actually, after I checked here, where I realized that that I could put up to 1 gauge on everything. So I was like, look at me, I'm about to deck out. And then I was like, wait, let me read this card again. And I was like, up to 1? Oh my god, Josh, you idiot. So that's how that game went. We still ended up winning, obviously, because our opponent just couldn't block this. But we should have been more careful about using our equip gauges and stuff like that. So if you are using Tachikaze for the first time, don't make the mistake that I did. That was it was terrible. I mean, it still worked out pretty well for what it was, but that was my first time touching the deck. So after that, I got a lot more excited playing the deck, and I was trying to play it to perfection after this. So we are playing against OTT, so we ride and we just attack. We get a Blytops, pretty good. We have a really good hand because we have Mega Rex in our hand. So we decided to call 2 Mega Rexes and a Sonic Noah, but also a Skyptero. So we attack using Sonic Noah, put an equip gauge on this. Mammoth gets rid of, so he actually heals. He was originally guarding, but I told him he had to guard with 2 or more, so he took it back and took the damage and got a heal. So I was like, wow, what a sack. And then we were going to attack with our rear guard, but we healed ourselves, so couldn't use the skill of Ravenous and have it be worth. So Our opponent rides, gets a crit, puts it in his Vanguard, puts the power to his rear guard. We guard his rear guard with a 10k. We ride Ravenous, and then we call Laxarex, putting a equip gauge on itself from its own skill. Then we attack with Gigarex, putting equip gauges on everything else that we need to put equip gauges on. We check 2 cards. One's a crit, so crit to Vanguard, power to rear guard. He doesn't check any triggers, so we attack for 19. He has to guard with 2 cards. He does it, and he doesn't get a damage trigger. So we attack with Megarex for 37, and then we attack with Deathrex using the skill, getting rid of 2 equip gauges, and so it gets plus 20k, and he has to retire Gemini, and so he has to guard with 2 cards and retire Gemini. So like you guys can see, like I'm eating up like OTT's hand, like, and their board. I mean, he's playing less board than regular OTT players do, and we're still eating up his board. So, or we're still eating up his hand as well. So, Imperial Daughter had a crit on it. We guard the other attacks. We don't have anything to re-ride, so this time we're thinking we just play Blytops and then Megarex, and we attack a Vanguard, putting equip gauges on just our front row, not Skype Tarot, because there's nothing that we can do with that, really. So we attack for 50k, we get a heal trigger, we put the power to rear guard, and then we attack for 19. And then our opponent guards with a 10, and then we use Megarex's skill to get a card back with Blytops, get a card back. We attack for 37, and our opponent guards with 2 cards, and then we use Deathrex skill to retire Megarex, and it attacks for 40k. So he actually PGs that, and he's down to 3 cards in hand, so we knew that next turn we can probably end it. All we have to do is survive this turn. So he did rewrite Imperial Daughter again. Imperial Daughter attacks for 35. We guard for a 2 to pass. He checks a heal trigger, and I was like, please don't check a crit. So he didn't check a crit, so we were able to just take 1 and guard 1, and then we end up just playing all these cards from our hand to the field, getting a second Accel circle because we rewrote as well. So we check a draw trigger, putting it to the rear guard and drawing, and then we attack our opponent for 18, 19. Then we use Deathrex skill to get rid of Blytops, getting a card back from our equip gauge, and then attack for 32. And then we would have attacked with this column for 20, retiring this, probably actually retiring this by a Soul Blast so that we can get that equip gauge back for a Soul Blast. And then it would have been 30 as well. So our opponent could not guard that, I believe, because he would have had to guard with 2 cards, and then he would have had to PG. So literally with 2 PGs in our hand, there's no way that he could have won the game, just because the next turn he would literally have to like top deck something really good. I don't even think there's anything that he could top deck in that situation to save him. But yeah, let's get into Tachikaze Game 3. So hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am. It's nice to be able to finally make a future fight for you guys. It's a future fight and not a past fight, as I like to say, because we're finally caught up. But we're playing as the Nova Grappler in our 3rd match. The Nova Grappler player does D-assist and get rid of 2 cards. So when he did that and we looked at our hand, we had like the perfect hand. I was like, this guy already lost in my head. But we continued, like, you know, trying anyways. So we attack with Temp Mammoth just to, you know, get a damage out of him. He guards Sonic Noah, and then we attack with Vanguard. We get a crit. He no guards. He gets a draw trigger, drawing, and then he plays Jet Riser, Burst, and this is when I knew that I was about to mess him up, just because he's playing so many rear guards, and we have a Tyrant Deathrex in our hand. So we were going to be retiring those rear guards. We just don't even care. So we just decided to eat all this damage. Like, we just straight up don't care. So we ride Ravenous, we call, we call, and we call. And then we attack with 12, putting equip gauges to just our Ravenous. And then we attack, we get a crit. Crit to Vanguard, power to rear guard. He gets a front trigger. Thank goodness he only got 1 trigger, because all of our things are able to still like attack him. So we attack for 20, stacking a equip gauge from Sonic Noah onto Rex. So then we use the skill to get a card back, because I was like, I need to live for the next turn. Then he actually plays a heal trigger from his hand, and he has a perfect riser. So I was like, dang, 6 attacks, 5 cards in hand. oh, looks like I'm gonna die. Which is funny because had I just used Death Rex on Gigarex and increased his power by 20k instead of 10, I would have put him in a much worse position, and I think he would have died because he would have had to PG and get rid of the heal, or he would have had to get rid of the Perfect Riser, whichever one he didn't have before he drew. But one of these cards he didn't have before he drew, and I would have been able to force a win out of him, or force him to go down to 0 cards in hand, and he might not have been able to ride to grade 3. So yeah, kind of mistake on my end, but Tachikaze is kind of like very high skill cap deck. It is still easy to play because it's in standard, but out of all the standard decks that are out so far, I think that it has like the greatest skill cap in my opinion, just because you have to, and that's how it was in the past too, you have to just be very aware of how you're spending your resources, how your opponent's spending their resources, what's on your opponent's board, what's on your board, how many equip gauges do you have, what's under your equip gauges, is it under a card that you can get it back, like just all these different things that you need to be thinking about as you're playing Tachikaze. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That was the Tachikaze FutureFight video. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up on the video. Helps a lot more than you guys might think. Also, if you'd like to support the channel a little more than that and keep updated with us, you can actually subscribe to the channel. There should be a description button or a subscription button down somewhere near the name of the channel on the video that you're currently watching. And then if you click the subscribe button, be sure to click the bell button next to it as well, because that gives you notifications for when our videos go live. You can check our description down below for our social medias, which is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you want to support the channel a little more beyond liking and subscribing, you guys can check out our Patreon, which has like contests and all kinds of cool stuff. You get to join a custom Discord and all this stuff and support the channel, talk to me, ask me questions, etc. And then you can also check out our merch store, which allows you to buy Cardfight Empire gear and merch. But with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire. Make sure you guys go to the last video to check out the announcement video as well. And yeah, this has been Josh, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace, guys.